The first time I realized something was really wrong, it wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was just a sentence that didn't belong in my own living room. A stranger's voice saying, "I already called 911. What are you doing in this house?" And for a second, my brain honestly stalled because you don't expect to hear that when you're standing on your own hardwood floor, keys still warm in your hand. Heart calm because you think you're home. You know what I mean? We moved to Willow Bend for peace. That was the whole dream. Just a quiet street. A place where our kids could ride their bikes without us hovering every second, where weekends meant coffee on the porch instead of sirens or stress. And I remember telling my wife, "Renee, this is it. This feels like the reset we needed." Aaron Jordan, that's me. I'm a tech guy. I fix problems on screens, not people. I believe if you keep your head down and do right by folks, most things sort themselves out. Yeah, that happened. I was wrong about that one. Renee works patrol. She's a cop, but she doesn't wear that like armor in real life. She just wants to come home, kick off her boots, be Renee, not Officer Jordan, and the kids. They just saw a big yard and freedom. The sellers hesitated when we signed the final papers, like they wanted to say something but didn't know how. And finally the husband leaned in and said real quiet, "Watch out for Linda next door." And I laughed it off because everyone has that one neighbor story, right? Turns out some warnings aren't small talk. Linda showed up 3 days after we moved in. No hello. No welcome. Just a binder so thick it looked like it could stop a bullet pressed into my chest like evidence. And she tells me my mailbox violates standards of the neighborhood association. She runs her words, not mine. I tried to be polite, showed her the paperwork, explained our property wasn't part of any HOA. It's private land, end of the street that should have been the end of it. But instead her smile tightened, eyes went flat, and she walked away without another word. The next morning, there was a violation notice taped to our door. The day after that, she was in our driveway at 6 a.m. with a tape measure measuring things that weren't hers to measure. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't about rules, this was about control. From there, it was death by 1,000 little cuts, calls to the city about grass height. Even though I'd mowed the day before, photos of our trash cans, photos of our cars, photos of our kids, our kids, and the worst part wasn't even the harassment. It was the feeling, that constant tightness in your chest, like someone's watching you breathe. Renee caught her once binoculars behind the curtain trained straight at our backyard. And when child services showed up because Linda claimed our kids were being neglected while I was literally standing 10 feet away flipping burgers, I felt something break inside me. Not rage, exactly. More like this heavy realization that no amount of being reasonable was going to fix this. The police came out for noise complaints too, a barbecue that ended before sunset, officers embarrassed, apologetic, and each time they left, Linda would stand in her window like she'd scored a point. That's when we put up the gate, not to provoke, not to flex, just to draw a line. And to Linda, that line was an insult. She screamed at the keypad, demanded access, called us cowards, and when we didn't respond, I saw it on the camera. Her face changed. Not angry, calculating, and I remember thinking, this isn't over, it's about to get worse. The day it happened felt ordinary, which is the scary part. I left for work. Renee left a little later, but she didn't go far. She doubled back because something didn't sit right with her. Call it instinct, call it training. And meanwhile, Linda watched the street empty, pulled out her phone and dialed 911. The recording would later say her voice was panicked, shaking, talking about screams, glass breaking, a woman in danger. She said she was going in to help the hero narrative already written, and then she hung up and smiled calm as anything, walked to her nightstand and took out a spare key she'd kept for years, a key that was never hers to keep. When she opened our door, there was no hesitation, no fear, just entitlement. Drawers opened, cabinets, searched mail, photographed. She wasn't saving anyone, she was hunting. And the thing about hunters is they don't expect the prey to be standing behind them. Find what you're looking for. Renee's voice cut through the house like ice. And when Linda turned and saw the uniform, the badge catching the light, everything drained out of her face. She started talking fast, tripping over excuses, HOA, authority, easements, emergencies, and Renee just listened, calm hand resting on her belt, and said something I'll never forget. My security system didn't hear screams, but it did record you breaking in. The sound of the cuffs snapping shut was loud, final. And when backup rolled up, sirens flashing, the whole neighborhood came out, phones up, whispers spreading, and for the first time, Linda wasn't the one watching from behind glass. The charges were read out loud: trespassing, stalking, filing a false report, and I stood there recording, not out of spite, but because I wanted proof that this actually happened, that we weren't crazy. We thought it was over then, but the real fallout came later when they searched her phone and found thousands of photos, not just of us, but of other families, kids, windows, backyards, all cataloged and shared in a private group where she played queen of the block, judging, labeling, deciding who belonged. 28 families joined the lawsuit, 28 stories of the same fear, the same silence, the same question of whether it was worth speaking up. In court, Linda tried to lecture the judge about bylaws from decades ago, about her role, her authority, and the judge, a woman who'd clearly seen this type before, shut it down fast, ordered a psych evaluation, a permanent restraining order, and damages so high, Linda had to sell the house she once ruled from. 6 weeks later, we watched the foreclosure sign go up, watched her pack a U-Haul while no one waved, no one said goodbye, and the street felt lighter, like it could breathe again. Sitting on our porch with Renee lemonade sweating in our hands, I thought about how close we came to just enduring it, staying quiet, telling ourselves it wasn't worth the trouble, and I wonder how many people still do that. How many Lindas are out there unchecked because someone's afraid to push back? So here's my question to you. And yeah, I really want to hear this. When does being patient turn into letting someone abuse power? And where do you draw that line in your own life? Drop it in the comments, argue with each other if you need to share your story, because silence only works for the bully. And I promise you, you're not alone.